off north of the border to take on the Toronto Blue Jays this weekend. I will be tweeting and watching and having fun all weekend and seeing if the Orioles can remain in first place. And, of course, the Major League Baseball trading deadline moving to the early part of the week as well. So we'll be monitoring all that. But it's the silly season now. All the purple birds have gathered out in Owings Mills. Luke Jones and I will be out there sweating it out with Joe Flacco and John Harbaugh and all of that meaningful preseason football. This guy is camping on the West Coast where he resides and hangs out. He'll start in Denver and go to Oakland and San Francisco and then down the coast to see the newly minted Los Angeles Rams as well as the Cowboys. We welcome exceedingly blunt journalism teacher and my pal, Jason Cole from Bleacher Report, back on the program. You can follow his journey out on Twitter at JasonColeBR. There's a wonderful Seattle Space Needle and some photo that at some point, Jason, I'm going to have you explain to me. How are you? Happy football season, my friend.
Thank you. Happy football season to you. Good to be back at the start of training camp and actually see people in pads hitting each other at least a little bit.
Well, you're starting at the beginning, right? I mean, you're going to Denver where, they had a parade. Yeah, they have some delicious gummy bears. But they have a lot of questions there about winning in the quarterback position and Osweiler in the offseason. Elway loves him a good challenge now, doesn't he?
Elway really loves a good challenge. Starting with his experience with the Baltimore Colts way back when, the challenge of getting out from underneath working for Bob Irsay way back when and for Frank Tush.
You know what I say to that? Elmira and Oneonta my ass. He wasn't playing baseball. I know that. I've talked to a Corsi about that.
I don't take that seriously, but he was, let's just say this, he was an awfully good baseball player. And if he had taken that path, it might have been interesting. It might have been fun.
Hey, you know what? He's getting into that place where Ozzie is now. Once you start putting some rings on the executive finger of being that guy for the next 15 years, it looks like over the next 15 years, he's going to try to outdo what he did on the field and win even more championships. Look, they've had an interesting offseason, and I think anytime you win with a literally over-the-hill quarterback the way they did with Peyton Manning, they're going to have to put this thing back together, but I wouldn't mind doing it with the pieces they have there.
No, when you start with that kind of pass rush, I mean, you've got, Von Miller, one of the premier pass rushers in the league. Got DeMarcus Ware. Now he's aging. He's on the other side. That's okay. But you got Shane Ray coming up. You got nucleus. I mean, you lost Malik Jackson, but, that's going to happen in this days of free agency. They lost Trevathan at linebacker, but you can replace linebackers in this era. The hard lesson that they learned, and I always go back to what Ozzie said before he went into complete shutdown mode here in the last couple of years. He said, if you're lucky, you have 3 or 4 guys that you have to pay them what they want, what they ask for. And if you're really lucky, one of those guys is a quarterback. And that's where the Broncos are right now. They had to play Von Miller. They had to pay Von Miller what he wanted in his contract negotiation. We'll see if that hurts them, helps them. The one good thing is they're pretty cheap at quarterback right now, with Mark Sanchez on, basically backup money and Paxton Lynch first-round draft pick on a rookie contract now, and Trevor Siemian, 7th-round pick. They got some guys to choose from. We'll see if any of them is any good.
Well, with the quarterbacks, it's so evident, it's so obvious when these guys move around that we remember this stuff for years, right? Whether it was the Chargers drafting Ryan Leaf or letting Drew Brees just sort of walk away and go take over another franchise. Clearly, the Colts did the same thing in Peyton Manning that built Denver. The Osweiler, Houston, Denver triangle, we're going to be following that one for the next 5 years now, aren't we?
Well, maybe. Let's see if Osweiler's any good.
Or if Paxton Lynch is any good, right?
Yeah. I mean, if Paxton Lynch is any good, if Mark Sanchez can turn his career around. I mean, there are a lot of angles to this one. But, yeah, I mean, this is the one where, I think John Elway was caught in a bad position here because he couldn't extend Osweiler last year going into his 4th season. I'm not sure Osweiler would have wanted to do that. But you get to it. The reason they couldn't because they still have Peyton Manning under contract. So are you going to give a lot of money and make it very clear that you're getting rid of Peyton after 1 year? Or are you going to wait it out? And they waited it out, and it became costly for them because, in the desperation for quarterbacks, Houston went after Osweiler and paid, $18 million a year, paid a really healthy sum, including a lot of guaranteed money for a guy that John Elway likes, but doesn't like that much. So now he's gone off and gotten Sanchez, and then he's going to get him, see what Paxton Lynch is about. And again, they like a lot of things about Trevor Siemian. So, keep your keep that name in the boiler, basically, because that one could percolate here to the top, somewhere along the line.
Trevor Siemian, huh? I mean, 7th rounder. I mean, the whole deal. Northwestern, smart guy, right?
Smart guy, and also injured in college, so they think that his value decreased. He also played behind some guys in a different offense at Northwestern. There's just a lot of things. I'm not saying he's going to be the guy. Don't misinterpret this. But
right on.
He has more ability than I think people would give your typical 7th rounder credit for.
That's what we said about Kurt Warner, I guess, later on, too. I mean, Tom Brady was a 6th rounder as well. Jason Cole joining us here. He is Jason Cole, BR, out on Twitter, and, of course, at Bleacher Report. And camping and covering all things NFL. We're talking about Denver because that's where he's going. And then on to the Bay Area where I guess Oakland's still kind of lucky to have a team at that point, but a pretty good team. I mean, if there's a team I'm sort of going on, putting a quarter or $1 into the pot and saying, I think they'll be a relevant team after Thanksgiving. I think the Raiders are going to be a relevant team after Thanksgiving this year.
I would say you're probably right, because I think Denver's going to have some obvious regression. Kansas City is still really good, but without Justin Houston early on, or certainly not a sharp Justin Houston, and we'll see what kind of shape Eric Berry's in if he misses a lot of training camp. Between all of that, I think the division is much more balanced than it was in the last 5 years. Denver's won the division going on 5 years straight. So Oakland has a chance. I mean, Carr, if he takes another step forward, that's the biggest factor that they have. But you also have, the presence on defense of Khalil Mack. If they get Alden Smith back in the second half of the season, they brought in Bruce Irvin. They're going to be able to rush the passer. They get some guys in the secondary who they think that can play a little bit, even though DJ Hayden hasn't come along nearly as much as they'd hoped. With Amari Cooper there and some other tools, this is a team that, it wouldn't be surprising. I mean, a lot of people are talking about them. A lot of people talking about this is the team that's going to take a huge step forward. I still think they're kind of a year away. Because I don't think that Derek Carr, as good as he is, as talented as he is going to be making that big a progression this year. His progression will determine how far they go.
Well, it's fascinating for me. I've been out in the Bay Area a bunch of times in the last year and a half and saw both sides of the Oakland-San Francisco thing last year and obviously at the Super Bowl in Santa Clara. I don't know that a year ago – I don't know what your thoughts were on it, but I would not have bet against the Chargers-Raiders thing working. Meanwhile, they both go home kind of sort of with their tail between their legs, and you're going to be in L.A. where the Cowboys are now the second citizen out there for this. And I was in L.A. for a couple of days back in March. I saw plenty of Rams stuff. Now, the question is, are they going to win? I think they'll draw this year. I don't think it's very well put together, and I don't know that it's meant to be well put together until they get the stadium out there. But it certainly is a new day for LA football, and there will be tons of interest because there's tons of people out there.
Right, and the most important factor is, look, they've got to do something to be entertaining. Not necessarily win right away, but it be entertaining. Like, you got to score some points. You got to play some exciting football. You've got to be fiery on defense. You've got to do something that attracts interest and keeps people coming. Now, they're going to get a boost this year because they're back. They'll get a boost again when they open the stadium. And there'll be a big rush for tickets and a big, huge excitement then. But ultimately, it's like everything in Los Angeles. You got to be competitive. The Lakers, the Dodgers have demonstrated that as much as those teams are entrenched in Los Angeles, when they dip, the Clippers are all of a sudden the biggest draw in basketball in that town right now. And as a LA native and lifelong Lakers fan, lifelong Dodgers fan, and used to be Rams fan, it amazes me that the Clippers are relevant, but they are.
I didn't know you were an LA native. I did not. I always associate you with Florida,
baby, 1984. 1980, I should say.
What town?
Studio City.
Studio City, man. That's why you're a star,
Valley,
right? All right. I did not know that you were. I think about you completely differently now as an LA guy, Jay. Dude, right. Hey, I understand now. So for you with the LA thing, what did you think a year ago? Did you sort of at some point realize the Rams would be the selection, or were you as confused as the rest of us?
I thought the Rams were look, the Rams were the team that the owners wanted along with the Chargers, but they could never get those two to sit down in a room and figure it out. And Dean Spanos, they didn't want the Raiders there. So when Dean Spanos wouldn't break away from his relationship with Mark Davis, get out of that, they were stuck with this situation where they kind of had to force the relationship between the Chargers and the Rams. And ultimately, Dean Spanos doesn't trust Stan Kroenke enough right now to take the deal. So what could have been a marriage of the Chargers and the Rams in Inglewood is, now a very, it was going to be a forced marriage if it ever happens at all. So we'll see what San Diego does now, because and the problem here was there were two factions of owners. There were the ones on the LA committee, the 6 owners who sat on that committee, who were very much in favor of getting the Chargers there to Carson and taking care of the California problem. But there were a bunch of other owners, led by Jerry Jones, who said, no, we need the best project. We need the deepest pockets in Southern California. We need Stan Kroenke there. We need the Rams there. And it became a massive fight. It was basically a bloodbath. And there was also a big group of owners who did not want any part of the Raiders being back in L.A.
Well, and I guess on top of all of that, Kroenke's money, and it's funny you'd say Spanos doesn't trust Kroenke. Who could trust Stan Kroenke at this point? I mean, he ripped the team out of his home state, for crying out loud, right?
Well, I mean, there's that. Yeah.
Just that little piece. Meanwhile, you talk about the Chargers, and I know you're going to be camping with them. An incredibly important year for them. I mean, I go back to 98. I covered the 98 Padres when Tony Gwynn was getting them to the World Series and helping them get Petco Park built. My aunt lives out in San Diego. I spent a lot of time out in PB, dude. At San Diego State and all that. And I remember all the drama that went on with that. I mean, the Chargers have been dangling forever. The city politics is a mess. Yet this football team, there's incredible pressure there. And I know we've had Eric Weddle out here, and we've talked to him a little bit about the mess that's going on out there. It feels like they're still dangling, and that feels a little weird. And I don't know how I would feel about that if I were a Chargers lifer. And you're talking to a Baltimore guy that had his team ripped apart, and I know you were a Rams guy that had your team taken away as well.
Sure. I think the problem here is that the Chargers have become the boy who cried wolf. And you can complain about your stadium and threaten to move and say you need a new stadium or you're going to do something. But when you keep doing it and doing it and doing it, we're 15 years in. Okay, this is not a new issue, okay? This was an issue way back when Paul Tagliabue, after before their last Super Bowl that they hosted.
0-2, right?
0-2, Tampa, and Tampa and Oakland. Before that game, Paul Tagliabue made it very clear to the people in San Diego, Super Bowl ain't coming back because the stadium is outdated. Since then, 15 years have gone by, nothing's happened. Nothing. And now, when they're trying, the city's trying to force feed one answer to the Chargers. That is to, go back to Mission Valley and we'll, rebuild a new place there for you and make it all right. And Chargers sitting there going, wait a sec, you put the Padres downtown. We need to be downtown and we need to have a kind of luxury facility that all teams in the NFL need to compete. So we want to be downtown. And now the hotel people are fighting this like crazy because they don't want to up the hotel tax. And now you got the people from Comic-Con. So it's, the geeks against the jocks.
Just like high school.
It's bad. And I really, when you combine those two factors, the fact that there's very little political support for this, there's no business support for the downtown one, and it's gone on for 14 years, which I think is a bigger factor. It's one that you can't measure, but it's one of those things where, the Chargers, they're threatening to move again. Whatever, who cares? No, we're not giving them any money. They're not going anywhere.
Well, they can obviously pick up and go to L.A. at any point, right? That's sitting there for them. It's not a great deal for Spanos at this point. But we're also at a point where the league's trying to expand globally and do the London thing, and we've talked about the realities of what a team would look like in London and how kind of
London's never happening. Let's stop that.
Okay. Well,
even the owners now, the ones who have really thought about it and said, how would this work? Taking a 23-year-old guy out of Alabama and plunking him down in London and saying, well, enjoy your life, cheerio, that ain't happening, okay? It's just not. They're not going to be happy. Their girlfriends aren't going to be happy. Their wives aren't going to be happy. They're not going to be happy being, 4,000 miles away from the East Coast if that's where their parents are.
Well, that's where every game will be as well. Every game becomes a 3-week road trip, probably. I mean, that's probably the way they'd have to do it. But I guess my point, even going back to that, is where are these teams going to go? I mean, San Antonio, St. Louis had a bunch of money on the table, more than anybody in the history of the sport, and they walked away from keeping, building a palace there against all odds.
You have St. Louis back in the queue, probably grudgingly, but you have them back in the queue. You may have Oakland in the queue. You've certainly got Las Vegas in the queue if somebody can work a deal out there, most likely the Raiders. All right, Portland may get into the game at some point in time. You mentioned San Antonio. Plus, look, there's always an opening for a second team in L.A. They will always keep that open. And the Jaguars are a team that I know for certain has examined the idea of Los Angeles, maybe not too seriously, but examined it. They've also examined St. Louis because that's where Shad Khan's from. They've also looked very thoroughly at London and seen how to make that work because they question the long-term viability of their own city.
Jacksonville's never going to happen, right? I mean, you lived in that part of the world for a long period of time. It's just, he's trying and he's saying all the right things, but it doesn't feel like it's ever really going to happen there.
Look, I think that they had really good support when they were good, but they haven't been there long enough, okay? It takes a long time for a city to fall in love with a team, especially when it's a transient city. I mean, Jacksonville's filled with people from all over the country who cheer for other teams, and Jacksonville is not their home.
You go to live and play golf and hang out at the beach and enjoy the weather, right?
Right, and there's no real city to Jacksonville. Jacksonville's just a bunch of suburbs that have been bought up with this little tiny downtown that's not very functional, okay? So let's be real about what Jacksonville is. It's going to take an awful long time for them to truly fall in love with the Jaguars. And I don't know if Shad Khan has that kind of time. I don't know if he wants to wait that long or go to a place where you got a bigger base, you've got more money. We will see how this one plays out. For right now, he's saying all the right things. He's investing, tens of millions of dollars in trying to make Jacksonville work. He's playing games in London to try and, improve the brand. So he's doing the right thing, but that doesn't mean that it's going to work. But here's the most important thing. They haven't won in forever.
Well, right, and, on to them if we're moving east in our chart. They're one of the teams that's going to be the hot team for the next couple of weeks. They're going to be the team that could make the big breakthrough this year. I don't know. I mean, certainly got a quarterback at least and wide receivers. We'll see how all those draft picks that they've been piling up. And Gus Bradley, I guess, it's all on him at this point. He's been given a little bit of a free pass through a lot of bad seasons down there.
Well, 3 bad seasons, and yeah, you've been given a free pass, but that was a really bad team with a really bad base of talent. But yeah, I like the candidate at quarterback. It might be the most balanced division in football right now, so we'll see how that one plays out. So there's a lot going on there in Jacksonville, but a lot to like. I mean, you talked about Dante Fowler comes back this year after missing all last year. You had Jalen Ramsey there. They brought in Malik Jackson from Denver. We talked about him before. You got Jared Odrick, pretty good nucleus along the defensive front. The 2 safeties are pretty good with Gibson. And I'm drawing a blank on the second kid, but the guys that they brought in, they got some pretty serious talent on defense. And the 2 receivers are very good. The tight end Julius Thomas is excellent when he's healthy. So you see the potential. I mean, you absolutely see the potential. They just got to take advantage of it, and that's the bottom line at this point.
He is Jason Cole. You can follow his journey on Twitter at JasonColeBR, at Bleacher Report, and around the world, and camping out on the West Coast. I'm going to be camping out on the West Coast of Baltimore in Owings Mills here this week. Any thoughts on the Ravens? I know you'll get here eventually through these preseason games, but I would think guys of your nature and stature are all looking at Joe Flacco and saying it really kind of begins with him, and I think it does, and I don't know how much we learned in the preseason other than him staying upright, being healthy, having some mobility, getting some confidence, and more than that, just getting reps with a whole bunch of wide receivers that, quite frankly, he hasn't been on the field with.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that he's going to end up being on the field with them either, right? I mean, is this, what group of wide receivers is he ultimately going to end up working with? I mean, Wallace will be out there, but no Steve Smith. And we know about Perriman's situation. I mean, what what's that receiving core going to look like?
Well, Kamar Aiken certainly turned some heads last year, but the question is why and how often and where would he fit in with a full complement? Would he even get on the field?
Kamar Aiken's a really good number 3. Like, if you're asking for vital time out of Kamar Aiken, I think you're asking for too much. That's my problem with what that team's going to look like. And I like a lot, but there's just a lot of ifs. You know, with Suggs, is he going to come back? If he comes back, if Flacco comes back completely healthy, if Steve Smith comes back completely healthy, if those are vital players. So yeah, could the Ravens be a competitive team, make the playoffs? Yes, I see that. They're going to play hard. They're going to be really physical. So those are 2 prerequisites. Are they going to have good enough players? Yes, they had an awful lot of flip of the coin games go against them last year. So that happens, and you usually see a correction from that. But to be truly competitive, to be a serious contender, there's too many injury flips that have to go their way for me to say, yeah, I'm putting them at the top of my list.
Well, I do like the healthy guys they signed in the offseason out in the market. Watson, Weddle, Wallace, some character there, some tread there. But I think Weddle's going to be a big difference maker. I still think this defense not only misses Ray Lewis, but really misses Ed Reed.
Well, of course. I mean, you're talking about 2 Hall of Famers.
Sure.
And, of course, they miss those 2 guys. I think they also miss the seriousness with which they take football. I mean, they gave money, not a lot of money, but money, to Will Hill last year. And what did Will Hill do? He smoked it away. And he's smoking his career away. And when Ray Lewis was there, yeah, there was guys who made mistakes. But the really talented guys, they were drawn to Ray. And they fell in line. And you get the feeling that if Ray was still around, maybe Will Hill, overcomes his demons and becomes the player that they thought he was going to become when they gave him that, again, moderate extension, but healthy given his circumstances. And those are kinds of key things. I mean, Will Hill was a guy they were planning around. So all of a sudden he's not there. Now Eric Weddle has to come in, and they got to pay a lot of money to Eric Weddle, bring in a guy who has not been part of the program, a great pro, but not part of the program.
But they've had good success with that, with the Matt Burks and even back to the Sam Adams and those guys that they picked up along the way. Those are nice pickups and traditional Ozzie pickups to boost the team in a way that he knows he can't do it during draft weekend, right?
Right, Sam Adams. The fact that they got as much out of Sam Adams, given Sam's
personality,
attitude,
yes,
personality, attitude, his. Can I say dickishness on radio?
You just did, yes. He's been called that before, yes. Although I got along famously with him, but he definitely had a dark side. There's no doubt about that.
Oh, he was a handful, right? But they got the one great season that Sam Adams had in him, and then combined it with the greatest season of Tony Siragusa, and came up with one of the 2, 3, 4 greatest defenses in the history of the league. And that was the magic there. But
plucking veteran guys who can still play, Ozzie's been pretty good at that. He's missed on some guys, but getting the time. Burke, Doomerville's in the middle of that right now. Trevor Price. They've been very strategic about those guys and in paying those guys and making them feel like they're a part of it. And usually guys who are grown-ups that they bring in. Usually it's not troublemakers.
Guys, for one, mature. Number 2, and the most important quality that I think Ozzie picks out, and he has a knack for it. Do the guys love football? Because you got to love football. If you don't love football, you're not going to do this. Especially when you're in your years 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, whatever it happens.
And you've already got money in the bank, right?
Yeah, you have to love it. And Ozzie's done an extraordinary job of finding guys who love the game. They may not be the most talented, but they love the game, and they want to keep playing.
All right, so as a California liberal mind, I guess it would be the next thing that would be Eugene Monroe, a guy who they really deemed did not love the game and had a lot of money, and now is out on the medical marijuana, cannabis tour, as was Ricky Williams. We're in a whole different place than we were 20 years ago talking about players and weed, and I know you're going to Denver camp, and there's gummies right down the street, amongst other flowery substances. We're in a different spot now, and the league's going to have to pay pay attention. This is going to be, as much as we've seen the league lead and follow on various issues, I think the players are going to push this thing, and the former players are going to push it around about pain and about pain management and about opiates and all of that. It's a new topic for the NFL to tackle this year, right?
Oh, absolutely. And look, as a person who's watched guys go through pain, for years and years and years, if you can prove adequately that this is better for pain management and it's not addictive, then and those arguments are out there and be made, and there's that scientific evidence to prove it, then I'm all for it. I'm not a marijuana user, never have been, but I'm completely open to the idea. Because here's the bottom line. Would you rather have a guy using Vicodin or marijuana? And generally I say, give him marijuana. It's something that grows in the ground. Vicodin, I don't know exactly how they put that stuff together, but it doesn't sound very appetizing. And I know it's addictive based on what guys like Brett Favre have gone through.
Jason Cole covering the NFL just as well as anybody out there at Bleacher Report. You can also follow him on Twitter at JasonColeBR. And you're still doing your occasional NFL serious stuff too, right?
Every Sunday morning between 9 and 11. Absolutely.
Do you want to explain this picture on your Twitter real quickly? Because it really is.
All right. If you go to my Twitter handle, you see a group of college-age guys, me included, standing in front of a big red football. And if you turn your computer on its side, you'll see that the laces read "Beat Cal."
Beat Cal. Okay. Yes, I do see that now. Sideways.
It's a red football because we all went to Stanford. And so this is a giant 12.5-foot tall football that's made like a Chinese lantern. In other words, it drops all the way down, that we made in our dorm together. We lived in the Cardinal dorm at Stanford University together. We made that. We put it under the finger of a statue of Father Junipero Serra, for all you Catholics out there, the man who conquered the West basically for Catholicism. And he is leaning, pointing west along Highway 280. If you drive along 280 in Northern California, you'll find the statue of Father Serra, and it looks like he's holding for a field goal. So we put the football under him in big red letters with the Stanford S on the side, and we had a lot of fun and made the front page of the newspaper and in the San Francisco Chronicle. And sadly, I think we lost the football game.
Yeah, you were there like right around the band camp time, right? I mean, that was kind of in that era, right? When was that game? 80, 81, 82, in that range?
That'd be the 1982 big game.
All right, there you go.
And,
so, yeah.
This interview was going great, Nestor, until you brought up the 1982 big game.
Oh, I forgot. You were on the other side of that. I forgot. I thought I was talking to Mike Silver. I'm sorry. I had no idea.
You thought you were talking to a Cal guy. No, you were talking to a Stanford guy who was at that game and had to walk through fraternity row at Cal after the game to go find my buddy's ex-girlfriend who lived at the Tri-Delt sorority. So that was a really bad day.
Yeah, dark times out there in Stanford for you. Hey, man, enjoy your West Coast camping, right?
Six straight right now, baby.
All right, well, brag away, and I hope you're getting free drinks and beverages and all that. Jason Cole is Jason Cole BR at Bleacher Report, as well as on Twitter. We love following him and hanging out with him and following the National Football League. He'll be on the West Coast all week. Jay, safe travels to you, man. We'll see you again soon.
All right, thanks, dude. We'll talk to you later.
Always a pleasure. There he goes. Always great food tips on the road, too, because he's a big Michael Simon guy, and so am I, even though I don't like Cleveland all that much, but I do like Michael Simon. You can find me out in the Bahia Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. And don't forget, breaking news, anything that's happened on the trading deadline, the Orioles in Canada this weekend, and obviously the Ravens out on the practice field, it will come to you first on the WNST Tech Service. That is brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. Dennis is here on Thursday driving you home from 3 until 5. I'm Nestor. This is WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore. And we never stop talking Baltimore sports. Safe travel.